Hello, everyone. Welcome to Thoughts for the Week. Welcome to all our subscribers and anyone watching for the first time. And you'll see we're a bit more covered today, but as cold as it's getting outside, things are heating up on the podcast. Today, we're going to tackle the top 5 mistakes people make with their retirement funds. So, Mo, let's kick it off with your number one pet peeve people make with their retirement money.
Thanks, Andrea. Welcome, everyone. Rainy, cold day here in Joburg. So my number one, definitely out of the top 5, is when people cash out their retirement funds for right or wrong reasons. And I think the big pet peeve is that often we get it where, as a behavioral bias, investors will say to themselves, well, I'll just make it back, or I'll save it back. Or another really good one is, I'll cash in my retirement fund, pay the 30% tax or whatever percent it is, pay off my bond and my debt, and then I'll just save and make it up monthly. And no one in my 20 years of dealing with investors has actually ever done that, because if you're cashing in your retirement funds, it's already a sign potentially of poor discipline or poor financial planning, or sometimes people are just honestly in the stock. It's going with eyes wide open. I don't know what your thoughts on that.
There obviously are retirement funds for a reason. They're there for retirement. They're not meant to pay off other things. There's other savings tools and other money that should be put aside for that. To try recoup retirement funds that you've now spent, it's long-term saving for a reason. That money's you're putting it away for 40 years. Spend it all in one go. You're setting yourself, you're digging a hole that you can't get back out of. Yeah, and I agree. That's a huge pet peeve of mine, and I've seen people put themselves into a state that they'll never recover from.
No, if you cash in your 2 million rand provident fund, pay 600,000 rands worth of tax to cover your needs of 1.4 million rand, to make that back over time, plus what you're already meant to be saving on top of that, it's actually almost impossible. But yeah, that's mine. What's yours, Andrea?
Unless there's a lottery win, or you struck big at the casino.
Exactly.
And if that's your only hope, then there's literally no helping you.
Yeah.
So something else I've noticed that people tend to go wrong on is an abnormal focus on fees. So they become sort of obsessive about the fees that they're paying, either to an advisor or to an investment house, and then to their detriment, that they put themselves in a tool that, yes, isn't charging very much, but it also isn't doing very much for you, which is why it's not charging you. So you get this negative return, but yes, you're not paying high fees, but you're getting a negative return, or a very small positive return where you could actually be doing better had you just put in the bullet on the fee side of things.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
Yeah, to that point, I've seen it go both ways. So you get investors that are not nearly worried enough about fees, and they end up getting put into products or solutions that are on the way upper end of a fee for value, especially policy-based investments, which is a separate discussion. And then, to your point, you get investors that are so worried about minimizing their fees that they actually end up penalizing themselves, either in terms of planning that should have been done in that vehicle that then wasn't, or simply going into a fund which is not going to meet their requirements. So a good example, and I obviously won't mention names, but there's a really, really well-known fund manager out there, and they brought out passive fund range, which only cost investors, I think, 25 basis points or 0.25%. But the tracking error on those funds was sometimes upwards of 10%. So in other words, if it was meant to be, doing 10 or 11% for that year, it was doing 0. A lot of investors didn't enjoy that process. Absolutely.
Yeah, zero in actual fact, a negative return if you take inflation into account. So you're running backwards. You're not even stepping.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think a good tip is to just tell people when they are taking out an investment, or if they're in a current investment portfolio, just have a look at your EACs or your TRCs, depending on the company with. They call it different things, and that'll give you a breakdown of your costs. And I think everyone should be cognizant of that, but not focus too much on it.
Yeah, to the detriment of your in planning.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the other one is, I mean, what do you think about number 3, which is delaying retirement savings, where people focus on other things than on life, and I've got lots of time to save for retirement, and then they end up starting too late.
And then they have to start too high in order to try catch up the time that they wasted. I think out of all of them, this one's probably the most common. If I had to pick one as the biggest culprit, is probably this. And I think a lot of people are guilty of it, even just because they haven't thought about it as yet. You know, they delay that retirement thinking. They have urgent needs that are in their face right now, and they focus too much on that without seeing the bigger picture. Sometimes it's unavoidable because of financial situations, but I think even if you start really, really small, it's a start. And that small start is going to have a huge effect on your retirement plan long term. I don't know if you agree with that, but that's the way I see it.
Absolutely. People say, well, I just can't afford to, or I'll wait until my next increase or promotion. The issue is that, generally speaking, again, because of behavioral bias in us as humans, is that we generally live for the moment, and you'll live to your means. So if that next promotion or increase comes, and all of a sudden you're driving a new car, but you won't be able to retire one day. And the other issue, to your point, is that the reason why delaying retirement savings is the most common problem, and it's a big issue, is that the compounding effect of your capital, so in other words, interest making more interest over time, it takes a long time to build up to a point where it's really meaningful. And if you start too late, then you're just not going to get to that point where it's compounding enough before you need to retire.
Yeah. 100%. And that I think would it segues nice into the fourth point, which is actually taking an early retirement or retiring before your funds actually allow you to, which is essentially what an early retirement is. A lot of people see like this huge figure that they've got in their retirement savings and think, no, this is going to last me for years. And turns out that their retirement lasts about 24 weeks and they realize they have to work again.
Yeah, you're right. So it's becoming endemic because of the fact that it's a huge cost to corporates, especially when you've got staff that have been with you for a long time. So all they do over time is they actually just reduce their retirement age. So what happened in the early days of corporate South Africa, I'm talking like, I don't know, decades ago, people used to retire at 60 and then they'd live a pleasant 7 or 8 years and then die promptly. Then people started to live too long. So corporates moved from, defined benefit.
Problem.
Corporates move from defined benefit, which is you work for us for a certain number of years, we'll pay your salary no matter how long you live, to what's called defined contribution, where we'll save for you, you save for you save outside of the company as well. And then when you retire, it's up to you to make sure you're okay. The issue there is that the retirement age was 65. That in those days, your life expectancy was around 80. And what's happened since is the retirement age has moved to 63. It's now a lot of the time it's 60, and people are actually living longer, living 85, 90. So people, it's actually not an option anymore. You cannot take early retirements. And if you're forced to retire early, then you actually need to get something else to do. You need to be able to supplement your lifestyle so that you can actually force your retirement later on. Otherwise, you're going to end up in trouble at an age that you just can't afford to.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And then, the last one. So, not planning to retire. From my point of view, before I hand over to you, the biggest issue here is that people go their whole career. They've got these things called retirement funds at work. Maybe they've taken out a retirement annuity in their personal names, but they actually never understand what it's going to mean one day, create a plan and actually review it. And then you get to, well, I'm retiring next year, so now what? And then it's actually too late. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. It's like people have this gap between their retirement money that they're putting away, and it's sort of like a figure they've got in their mind, but it's got no practical use. They've taken the practicality out of that figure. Whereas you should be thinking, okay, I don't need, well, essentially, don't think about the big number. Think about your monthly number. You need how much to survive every month. Is that big number going to provide that monthly amount for me? And if you catch it early enough, you can actually supplement it to the point where, yes, it will cover your basic monthly need. And obviously, there's retirement calculators out there which will take inflation into account and give you a good idea at any point in time on how you're doing along your journey to retirement. But don't just have that amount or that fund sitting there without it being practically realized in your life. I think it's a huge and also prevalent mistake that people make. They assume it's going to be enough when in actual fact they don't know.
Yeah, they don't know, and often because you're not looking at it, it's not enough. Yeah.
99% of the time, it's not enough. Cool. Yeah, and that's our take on the top 5 mistakes people make. If you think of any others that we've possibly missed, drop it in the comments and we might pick it up again in the next session.
Thanks, Andrea.
But for now, that's all. Thanks. Thanks, Mo. Thanks everyone for watching. If you enjoyed the content, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up and to subscribe to the channel. Just a disclaimer, these are our thoughts and opinions and not to be misconstrued as advice. Cheers.